This morning, okay, you're not going to like today's sermon. It's a feast, but it's a feast of vegetables. It's not cake. Next Sunday is more cake. This Sunday is very Brussels sprouts. As Mark read, the sermon or the section of Scripture, Malachi chapter 1, is where we will begin. The whole thought is you're doing it wrong. You're worshiping me wrong. And the Jews at the time that Malachi was giving them these orders, they weren't looking for the right thing. They're not looking for the Messiah. They're not worshiping God the way they're supposed to. The kingdom of Israel is coming to an end. The physical kingdom is coming to an end. They're about to be carted off into captivity. And God is saying, you are doing it wrong. You don't church good. Malachi's words, the 13th verse, what a weariness this is, and you snort at it. This is their attitude when they walk in the doors of the temple and the synagogue. This is what happens when they walk in. This is what happens, maybe not when they walk in. Maybe this is what happens when they leave their house. Maybe this is what happens when the alarm chicken goes off. I got to put on the good clothes today. You know, it's my Saturday go to meeting shoes that I have to wear. What a weariness this is. Are you here because of obligation? You feel like you're only here because of obligation. I'm only here because I was told to be here. That's how we're supposed to relate to it. That's what this sermon is supposed to be about. Emotionless worship. I'm here because God said I show up on Sunday. Tie, shoes, belt, pew. Good. What if I were to tell you there's no commandment for you to be here on Sunday? What if I told you you can open up your New Testament, you can read it from the beginning of Matthew to the end of the Revelation, and you will not find any command that starts or sounds like thou shalt show up on Sunday. It's not there. And you're here anyway. Good for you. It's just not there. You won't find you need to be here on Sunday. It's not there that you have to wear tie, belt, shoes, which is a good thing because some of you have none of those things on right now because you've already sat down and I know your shoes are off. It's just not there. What is there are examples. So we're here because of examples. On the first day of the week, when they gathered together to break bread, hey, it's first day of the week and we broke bread. So that's why we're here. That's one of the reasons that we showed up today, and that's why it's there that we would say that. That's why it was said this morning. We all know why we're here. We do, because it's the first day of the week, and that's when they do the break bread thing. What is it? We refer to 1 Corinthians, to the correction of the Lord's Supper, for how to get that correct. But also in that Corinthian book, there is what else you do. You lay by in store, which we also talked about this morning, with bringing something back to God. I really appreciate it when people make sure to point out God does not need your material stuff. And God doesn't need your material stuff. But other people need your material stuff because other people don't have stuff. There's a lot of your brothers and sisters in Tennessee right now in the Gatlinburg area that don't have any stuff because fire destroys stuff. There are people in this congregation that appreciate the stuff that you're able to do for each other. And it was brought up that it was supposed to be preached a little bit back that the numbers that go on our financial report have been decreasing. Our are we paying attention to what we are giving? That sermon had to be postponed. But that is one of the obligations that we have. What a weariness this is, and snort at it. Is what you do for God, not just in this building, because this is not the only place that we worship, is anything to do with God something you grow weary of? Well, it's time for me to, I need to do my Sunday school lesson. I really don't want to. I'd rather play anything. I'd rather watch TV for any reason. But I guess I'll go ahead and get ready to do Bible class. Or I guess I'll pick out my songs for Sunday. I guess I'll do my budget so that I'll know what it is that I have to give back to the Lord. If it is that you feel like serving God is an obligation, then that snorting is you. That's where that is. I got to do this. And we have the discussion of I have to go to church versus I get to go to church because it's Sunday, and just how you word things. But it's way more than the wording. I can't ever remember to not say I've got church on Sunday, because it's more of a, for me, I've got it on my schedule than a burden that I have to do. It's more of I've got it penned, not penciled, but penned in for this day. It's what I've got on this day. So that's where I am with it. But it took a long time to get there. If the things that you're doing for God you do out of obligation, then that's an inadequate amount of giving for yourself, giving of yourself. The scriptures that we look at for giving, the big one about the cheerful giver, is important, because the monetary value, the number, as it was said this morning, it doesn't matter what you give, or it doesn't matter that God needs what you have to give. Well, it doesn't. God doesn't need any of it. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion. Is your Christian life always an under compulsion thing? I'm so mad that I have to control my tongue. Have you ever thought of that direction? Like, I'm not happy. It angers me that I'm obliged, because I'm a Christian, to keep my mouth shut. That's a different direction, right? I really wish I didn't have to fill in the blank. Not reluctantly or under compulsion. Consider, as this goes further down, specifically about monetary value and blessing, that we reap what we sow, or it's actually right here listed above it. Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. If all you do for God is under compulsion, your only reason that you're a Christian is because you have to be, then that's about all you're going to get out of it. All those blessings, those benefits, those rewards, that peace that surpasses all understanding. That wisdom to know how to handle situations where you don't have as many of those obligation moments. What do I do in this situation? I know, I've learned it. I've read what God's word has to do with it. So my heart's not as burdened. It's not as heavy. I can move on. Well, I didn't get there because under compulsion, I'm just a pew-filling Christian. And it doesn't matter to me. I'm here. Like, we've all heard that sermon, right? Just filling the pew isn't doing enough. I think I threw the twist in there when I said there's no command for you to actually fill this pew. There's a couple of things you're supposed to do on Sunday. We do them together like this. It's called church. We know that as church, right? And that's why we show up, because there's some things we need to do. The last thing I'll point out before I move on is an article, and this is all Andrew's fault, so bring your rotten tomatoes to him. 3 of the points that I agreed with. Number 2, we're sick of hearing about your values and mission statements. I want to be a Christian. I pray for being a better person. And I do nothing about it. It's recognized. This specific article, if you didn't happen to read it, is why millennials are leaving the church. I'm Generation X. I'm not a millennial, regardless of what time frame or age they put in there with it is. It's 80 people who were born technically 1980 to 1995. Why people my age are leaving the church. We're sick of hearing about values and mission statements. I'm tired of saying this light bulb doesn't work, and 3 months later that light bulb doesn't work. How do you care anything about God if you can't fix a light bulb? I can't even get a light bulb fixed. How is my dedication? And like that was for you ladies who never went to a business meeting, I just hit every man in here. Square in the forehead. We're sick of hearing about values and mission statements. The thought very next to that one is helping the poor isn't a priority. What are we doing for our fellow man? You're a Christian and you don't do anything. What kind of Christian are you? By the way, I've read this book that's referenced down here at the bottom, Radical or Radical Christian or something like that. Pretty good read. It's not a Church of Christ approved book for sure. It's not a catechism or a doctrine that we would hold to. But the idea of chasing after Christ alone is a fair idea. The last point was number 11. Stop saying anything unless you're actually going to do something. Don't say anything if you're not going to do anything. If you want the respect of our generation, under promise, over deliver. Stop speaking in abstract sound bites and make tangible plans on something you're going to follow through with. We got to see some kind of action. See, now I just said that I wasn't in that group and I don't need to see that. What the writer of this article does not do, and that I think Andrew almost fully pointed out, is that they so over-scrutinized that people tried. There is nothing in this article about, I tried and I just couldn't get it done. Or you know what, right now all I have is the ability to pray for you, so I will do that. I don't have any extra money. I don't have any extra gas. I don't have any extra food. I will pray for you, and that's all I've got. This article doesn't accept that. It's a merciless, graceless article. It also reminded me not to make this a merciless, graceless lecture this morning. So thank you. Do you do worship? Don't. If you're not here for the right reasons, if you can't wake up on Sunday morning for the right reason, if you cannot get your heart focused, stay home. If you cannot give with a cheerful heart and say, you know what? I'm glad I'm able to give this back to God. Keep it. If you can't sing with emotion and say, you know what? I like these words. I can say them from my heart. Keep your mouth shut. Oh, that there were someone among you who would shut the doors. Just don't. That's better than doing it without emotion, without caring. I'm just kind of here and I do it. So what does it look like? First of all, there's 2 different directions that we'll have to go on that, because there are some benefits to being here, but you may not call it worship. Just to watch other people worship is not a bad thing. But whenever someone says, how you doing? The answer is not, fine. When you just don't, or I'm not going to go to church today because I can't get my heart focused, I can't get my mind focused, I'm not going to partake of the Lord's Supper this morning because I have so much else going on in my mind that I cannot center my heart on the fact that someone died for me. Okay, just don't. it's not that you're giving up on God. It's that you're trying to evaluate yourself and trying to get yourself in the right situation. If you can't correctly assess where you are, how can you know how much to give back to God? If you don't know who you are, how do you know who to give back to God? If you don't know all the blemish and all the spot that you have in your mind at this time, then what you're giving back to God is that of spot and of blemish, isn't it? Is it not? This is the ideal. This is what we hope for, right? You hope that everyone came in this morning and can stand there fully outstretched and vulnerable and say, search me and know my heart, try me and know my thoughts, and see if there be any grievous way about me, and lead me into the way everlasting. That's the ideal. I hope everyone can walk in here and say, I've made it through this week. I've run and I just hit the door like a finish line ribbon. I made it. Not everybody will. And that's okay. Who was it that was vindicated? The man who said, I do all these things? Or the one who said, forgive me, I'm a sinner? Evaluate yourself. Know why you're doing your religious duty. And do those with a clean heart. It's not that you're going to be perfect. It's that you're acknowledging that God is. That you are coming to Him knowing where you are. Thing is, you are conscious of what you're doing. You don't walk in and sit down because it's Sunday at 9:30 or 10:30 or whatever time. I don't come in and sit in this pew because it's time to. I come in and sit in this pew because it's finally time to. And I get to see you. And that should be that not of compulsion, but cheerful. Do you acknowledge your status as a sinner? We go to Romans 3:23, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You go to any other verse or chapter about where I was. But of all of the things that you could classify what we're doing this morning, hospital is one of them. There's a lot of different people and a lot of different type of folks at the hospital. And I'm not saying this because of my other occupation. I'm doing it because Matthew said so, or Jesus said so. In Matthew, Mark, Luke, and I don't remember if John has this one or not. I'm pretty sure it's in all four of them. And when the Pharisees saw this, they said to the disciples, why do your teacher eat with tax collectors and sinners? But when he heard it, he said, those who are well have no need of a physician, but those who are sick. And I've thought about it for a while and said, what would really increase folks here at Wakulla would be to have more folks in the pews who were sick, so that the people who are well or think that they're well would have somebody to take care of. We got a lot of nurses here that know how to nurse you with Scripture. We got a lot of families here that know how to help you a little bit. Maybe we need some more sick folks so that we got more people to take care of. That way the hospital doesn't close, right? You know, the other thing about what happens when sick people come in, they bring germs. And sometimes people who are nurses find out that they're sick too. Yeah, I just indicted all the nurses. Acknowledge where you are. Acknowledge what you need. Do it because you need to and you want to, not because you have to or you're compelled to. The other question is, hey, I am a good nurse. And hey, I'm not sick. Okay, that's cool. What are you doing for the patient? Like, you're trained in medicine, right? You're trained in the medicine of the Word. What are you doing for them? What medicine are you giving them? What treatment are you prescribing for them? Another indictment of the nurses, sorry. Thing is, you have to be committed. It's not about being committed to showing up at 9:25 so that you can get in your pew before 9:30. And it's not about being committed to signing all the cards that are available at the end of worship service so that you've done something. It's about being committed every single day so that God wouldn't say, shut the doors. I'm going to give effort. I'm going to give some kind of effort so that what I'm giving He can see. Present that to your governor. Will he accept or show favor? We get away with what we feel like we get away with because God doesn't open the clouds and say, no, tighten up. Fix it. We get away with what we get away with because when the show takes a break and the commercial comes on, it doesn't go to some snowy screen and say, you know, you could be doing that Bible lesson that you're neglecting. It's not that when you pick up your phone in the morning and go to swipe the alarm off, the alarm won't shut off until you hit your knees and thank God that you opened your eyes. Do stuff and want to. And the first thing you can do is, if you don't want to, acknowledge that you just don't want to and see how that makes you feel. The theory behind saying that is, you know, I don't want to worship God today. Okay, well, how does that make you feel? Well, I can get by without God. Okay, let me show you about a dozen Bible stories on people who thought they could get away without God. And if the answer is the other side, which it will be, what are you presenting? Is God acceptable of this? One of the hardest things to do, my partner and I pray almost every single morning, and if not, it's because work's fault, not because of ours. And one of the hardest things to do that we've started including is let us serve our employer as we would serve you. And it's really hard because sometimes my employer is really dumb. Or at least it feels like that at the moment. So the letters to the churches in Revelation, when God is giving advice, when Jesus is giving advice out, He comes to Laodicea and He says, I wish you would just do something, right or wrong. Have you noticed that? You are neither hot nor cold. Would that you were hot or cold. He would rather you sin than do nothing. Because at least if you do something, you can be corrected for it. There's a really weird relationship in how that just worked. And if you have any question whatsoever about God telling you to sin because you thought you just heard me say that, come ask me about it. I'll fix it for you. But He would rather you do something than nothing at all. Would that you were hot or cold, but because you're lukewarm, because you're apathetic, because you're happy filling your pew at 9:30, and that same contribution that you've been given for 30 years, and that same effort in singing that you've been doing for, I better leave that year alone, for all those years, with the same songs that you only learned 30, 50, 80 years ago. I'm happy where I am. That's exactly what Laodicea was. Very happy, exactly where they were. Do something. Good, bad, or otherwise. If it's bad, I'll correct it. We'll fix that. Hey, you stepped out of line. Let's get it straightened out. If it's good, all right, cool, good job. But nothing is nothing, and that's not good. Therefore, as you received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in Him. There's another one of those Sunday things. It's about not neglecting the getting together of saints. No, it doesn't say show up at 9:30 every morning because that's the scriptural time for the Church of Christ to meet. walk in Him? Well, one of the things he did was go to the synagogue often. One of the things that he did was build his people around him up and uplift them. So we try that. Rooted and built up in Him, established in faith, just as you were taught, abounding in thanksgiving. Ooh, abounding in thanksgiving? I'm going to ask you a question. I want a date to appear in your mind. Okay, I'll give you that. I'll be gentle. I want a week. I'll take it back. I want a month. When's the last month you can remember there was something happened in the Lord and you were happy about it? Somebody did something that had to do with the Bible and worshiping God, and you were happy about it and you rejoiced. The month. Do I need to dial it back to a year? The last year you rejoiced, abounding in thanksgiving. Maybe it's just a burden for you to be religious. And that's the assessment of yourself. Definitely not an assessment that I want to make. But we do that so that we don't get taken captive by philosophy. Because by philosophy and by human tradition, those good churchgoers show up at 9:30, 10 o'clock every Sunday morning. And those are good folks, right? So we think we're good folks because we show up at 9:30, 10 o'clock every Sunday morning. That's our assessment of how good Christian we are. Because we showed up. When in all actuality, you're not a nurse, you're a patient. You're just not responding well to the treatment. And that's a hard lesson. And it could be that emotion that you're here for, or the one that you think you're going to get, isn't right. I don't have any emotion in my worship because I don't want it to be... You know how this sermon was going to start? At the middle of the chorus of the last verse of whatever song it was that Andrew was going to lead, I was going to come up with some clapping. All right, let's hear it for the worshipers over here. Who can worship better? And see if you can get it over here louder. That's not the right emotion either. But if you can look inside and abound with thanksgiving, if you can rejoice with someone else. We baptized a lady about 2 weeks ago, and it was the Thanksgiving that I'm referencing for me. And it was awesome. And if you didn't rejoice and abound in something, maybe you're the patient and not the nurse. What kind of emotion do you have when you show up? And it's different every Sunday, especially depending on the song leader. the songs selected. But the point is that I should be living for Him. I should be trying. And the emotion that I have about coming here should be a positive one. That I should sow more things with my brethren so that I can reap more things with my brethren. If you need any help with that, this is the emotionally appropriate time, right? We have culminated our sermon into this nice big apex, and we're going to finish it with a definite space of time. And this is the emotionally appropriate time to answer this call. But that doesn't help tomorrow, and that doesn't help the next day. If you need help at any time, make it known. Look, here's an opportunity now.